Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Who's Who, Project 100 Profiles. My name is Abdusalam Dawood Marshall, and I'm so pleased to be speaking to our guest today. He's a brother whose voice you may have heard and whose face you may have seen during Project 100. He's one of those unsung brothers or sisters around the masjid and around the community who do so much important behind the scenes work, but never gets the spotlight. Now, I know this brother isn't doing it for the spotlight. He's not doing it for the attention. He's doing it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But I want to create some space for him to share his background, his experience, his stories, so that we can be inspired, inshallah. So please join me in welcoming Brother Adam Ali. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good to see you again, Brother Abdusalam.
You as well, Brother Adam. It's great to have you. So thankful and so grateful for you joining us. Now, for those of you who haven't had the pleasure of meeting Brother Adam, in addition to being a mover and shaker in Project 100, Brother Adam has a background in computer science. He also helps to run a small Quran school, while at the same time he's pursuing a degree in radiologic technology. He's also a volunteer in the local Muslim American Society chapter in Dallas, Texas. So Brother Adam lives in Garland, Texas, a suburb of Dallas. Now, for a lot of folks, maybe when they think of thriving Muslim communities, they don't always think of Garland as the first place that comes to mind. And yet that's exactly the type of community that Brother Adam is helping to build there. So let's start at the beginning. How did you end up in Texas?
So at the time, all my family was living in Egypt, mom and dad, and my two older sisters. And my dad was studying at the time in college. I can't remember if he was getting a master's or PhD, one of the two, and it was in mechanical engineering. And at some point during his studies, he had to come to the United States, and he stayed there for a bit, and he just loved it there. He loved the culture, just the atmosphere, everything. And so he got an idea for the family to eventually move there, not just for his studies, but just for them as well. And they eventually did. They moved to, they came to the US and they came to Austin, Texas, and they stayed there for a few years. Then they came to Grand Prairie, where they kind of settled in, and eventually I came into the picture as the youngest and only boy of 3 kids. And I lived there for 16 years. Now, growing up there was interesting. It was definitely not a typical childhood. So I'm a very shy and reserved person, and just sometimes the thought of speaking in front of people absolutely terrifies me. It terrified me even more. And the kind of root of this issue was the fact that I had a developmental delay in my speech when I was 4 or 5 years old. Now, I didn't know about this until I was looking through some old files, and I saw some papers about visits to a neurologist that my parents took me to when I was around that age. And, I just looked over it and I was like, wow, I didn't know I had to see a neurologist for all that. And I definitely knew at that time, when I was able to start, thinking, being conscious of everything around me, that I didn't like speaking with people or being around them was just very weird and uncomfortable and made me feel very anxious. But I didn't know exactly what it was or why it was like that, but it was something that stuck with me. And I never really got over it until later on. But at that time, just even speaking my mind or saying something was just, I didn't want to do it at all under any circumstances.
Wow.
So I was not. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so it's this classic, American tale of a immigrant family pursuing their degree, growing up in Texas. Already, I'm sure, culture shock, but it sounds like an amazing just place to be. And then here you are, you're growing up in the middle of it. And as you said, this shy and reserved kid. Can you remember any moments in childhood? Do you even remember going to the doctor? It sounds like that was a complete shock to you. Or were there moments when you realized, like, no, this, there's just something about me that I don't like to express myself in that way.
There was one moment I remember. My mom told it to me a couple of years later. Um, she told me about something that I'd do when I'd get home from the bus. And I remembered that sometimes when I'd get off the bus and I'd go home, I'd be upset. I'd be really upset. And I wouldn't be able to tell her why I was upset. She'd
Mhm.
ask me. It wasn't until she got me alone and I felt that there was no one else in the room with me that I'd talk to myself and I'd say, I want to be the first one off the bus, which
Oh,
was kind of a weird thing for a kid like me at that age to be upset about. But I could talk. It's
mhm.
just I usually wouldn't want to unless I was just by myself. And that was really
Hmm.
the main thing that I remember. You know, sometimes I'd have to, speak for projects in school, and it was terrifying. I got through them somehow. I wanted to get good grades, so I was just like, okay, just say whatever you need to say and get it over with.
Wow. At what point do you think your mother thought, well, maybe this is something that I should see someone about, that maybe it's not just shyness, or what do you think prompted that?
Hmm, I think she and my dad were both just very concerned at the time, and they were probably thinking about, other kids as well, how my sisters were at that age. And I think none of my sisters, they ever had any issues like that. So uh, when they saw that with me, there was just some concern and some worry. But
Mm.
um, I don't know what it was that caused it, but eventually it it kind of went away. Like there wasn't a delay, there wasn't a developmental delay. Like my speech was fine, I could
Mhm.
communicate fine. The main issue was just that I didn't want
Right.
to, and I was that uncomfortable doing it.
Right. Did you grow up in a bilingual home, or did you mostly speak Arabic in the home?
uh they spoke only English to me.
Okay.
As for why they didn't speak Arabic to me, there's a specific reason for that, and this kind of segues into something else that I went through when I was growing up as a kid. And it's it's something that's kind of difficult for me to talk about, and I actually need to be careful as I'm talking about now. But what I want to say is this: is that a very young kid, doesn't ever want to have any reason to think badly about their parents. And sometimes if you're and I'm not talking about a situation where a parent won't let their kid play video games or eat
Mhm.
chocolate because they don't want them to indulge too much in something. But
Mhm.
it was something else that I went through, and I had to go through it for several years. And
Mhm.
it's just it was an incredibly painful and brutal thing on so many levels, you know physically, emotionally, spiritually. It was actually the reason why I didn't learn Arabic.
Mhm.
It wasn't negligence that caused me not to learn Arabic. It was something else. And I can't really,
Yes.
when
Yeah.
people see that I don't really speak Arabic, they just assume I just tell them that, my parents didn't speak it to me when I was a kid. And that doesn't make sense to them because I'm Egyptian. And I can't
Mhm.
really tell them, but in my head, I'm always thinking I wish I could.
Wow.
And that really exacerbated the feelings of anxiety, being uncomfortable that I had, because I didn't feel these things just around people. I felt this with my own family, and I didn't really have anyone to talk to about it. No kid wants to. It's just a cruel thing because it changes how you look at the world. It changes how you look at your own family, your own parents. And I didn't want to feel like that, but those were the things that that I was feeling.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I know it's very difficult for you to do that. It must have been so difficult for you at the time. What did you do, or how did you overcome some of those challenges?
Honestly, I don't know. I don't really think I did anything. It was just certain things ended up happening, and
Mm,
I did my best to take advantage of them. So it went on for a couple years until something happened that, stopped it. But that didn't necessarily make things better. It made them better in a way to where it wasn't going on anymore. But I was still hurting, and
mm,
I just wouldn't admit it at the time. I just continued on as if nothing changed at all. And I tried to focus on school, make good grades, but
yeah.
I was a mess. And
Well,
it just kind of continued like that until I moved, and that's when things sort of happened.
started to
But
change.
yeah, I didn't do anything at all. Like, if I knew there was something to do, I probably would have done it. But
Right.
at the time, I didn't know. I was a kid. So
Yeah. So no Arabic in the home. To what extent was your Muslim faith, being Muslim, the Islamic faith, part of your home religion? Was that something that you were turning to at the time, or was that also kind of an absent presence?
that aspect was practically non-existent for us at that point, as was just the idea of a community. We weren't
Mm,
integrated in a community at all. Like, my parents, they knew some people, they had some friends, but not not to the extent which I saw with the community that I saw here when I moved. And that was also part of the problem too. There was just so many things that were grouped up together.
right. Um, did your parents come to the U.S. After September 11th?
No, they came before, well
Okay.
before.
Was that, do you think, part of the experience as well, in terms of not having that community and maybe just feeling like needing to protect yourself a bit and to be distant from the Arab or Muslim community?
To be honest, for me, I'm not really sure, because I was already in my own little world, and I
Mhm.
was just so disconnected from so many things. And since I wasn't really part of a community, or nor was I really a practicing Muslim, I didn't know quite how to process it. I knew it was
Mm,
a bad thing, but I didn't understand it on a deeper level. So to me, it was just another thing.
wow. So it sounds like the real turning point for you was when you moved, when you were 16 years old. You're moving from where is it in Texas? Prairie,
Grand Prairie.
Grand Prairie. I wanted to say Eden Prairie. I'm like, no, that's the other side of the country. That's Minnesota. Grand Prairie, from Grand Prairie, Texas to Garland, Texas, a suburb of Dallas.
Mhm.
What was that like?
It was so we moved there. The main reason we moved there was because my sister, my older sister, just had her third baby, and we wanted to be
Inshallah.
closer to them. So we moved there, and I didn't really know what to expect, of course. I found out when we moved there that there was a lot of masajids, and there was one particular one that was 10 minutes away from where we were living. And
Mm,
my parents had enrolled me in two classes there at this place. One was an Aqidah class, and I think one was an Arabic or a Quran class. I didn't like that they did that at first, but it turned out to really be a blessing in disguise. Because I went there, I saw all these people there. They were really nice. They were very friendly. Um, at some point, I started to try and pray 5 times a day more, uh, and I
mm,
was just really perplexed by this idea that all these people knew each other and that they'd come there so many times to meet. And I'd go to some events, there'd be fundraisers, and there's so many people. And that was just new to me. It's like, wow, all these people know each other and they're coming together, but why and how is this possible? And my sister, she helped me a lot. Uh, she was involved in the community. And she eventually had to move to Austin with my brother-in-law and their three kids. But she's amazing. She's so knowledgeable. She's so dedicated to her family, to everything she does. She's learned so much about Islam. Uh, I just have so much love, respect, and admiration for her. And one thing that I love about her that I want to have as a personal trait is that when she sets her mind to something, she does whatever it takes to get it done. And she works so hard. So like having her there to just kind of like show me everything, show me what it's like to be part of a community, active in a community. It really helped a lot. And then that same year that we moved, in Ramadan, that same year, I'd go for Tarawih, and one night I met somebody. I won't say his name, but if he happened to watch this, he'd probably know who he is. He saw me and said, "What's your name?" And I told him, and he said, "It's nice to meet you. We do programs here sometimes. Why don't you come and for the program?" And so I did. And that day was I keep rewinding to that one particular day because that day it kind of set a bit of a chain reaction in motion of events that happened. But my life, the trajectory of my life, it definitely changed when we moved, and on that day when I met that one particular brother. I guess you could say it was fate.
MashaAllah. Wow. Well, may Allah bless your sister, your sisters, and your family. I have two young children myself. I am a younger brother myself, and I know what a blessing siblings can be. I know we fight sometimes, but they're wonderful. And your words are like music to my ears. I want to play this for my kids. That, yeah, when mom and dad make you go to Quran school and learn Arabic, it's actually a good thing, and you're going to thank them in the future. And your little brother who you tease and who you hate, he's actually going to love and admire you and respect you when you grow up. So this is just wonderful to hear. And also just what an amazing lesson and message for all of us to keep in mind. Next time you're at the masjid and you see someone who's new there, who's looking around kind of shy, don't just ignore them. Don't just go and be with your clique and your crew and speak your language and do what you're, gossip. Reach out and say, hey, why don't you join this halaqah? Why don't you join this program we have? I mean, that's just so vital. People come to the masjid and they can slip through your fingers if you never make the effort to just reach out. So may Allah bless that brother who invited you. It sounds like what you're describing is that you found community for the first time in your life. And it's amazing how so many people in this country don't have that. So tell me more about, what happened next. You joined this, you went to the masjid, you joined these programs. Where did you go from there?
So it was around that time when I started going to these programs that I started hearing the word mass get thrown around. That was a little before a mass center opened up. And at the time there was this activity, this project going on. It was basically someone who I ended up meeting. He became another, close friend of mine. He was putting together a play that narrated the life of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the companions. It was called Mercy to Mankind, and they were doing it in 3 parts. So the year before I moved was when they started it, and they did part 1 of the play. And I came right before they started working on part 2. And I heard about it and I got interested. I heard about it from the brother I met in the masjid in Ramadan. So I asked him about it and he got me in touch with the other brother. And so I went to him. I told him I was interested. Um, they gave me the part to play, and I played it. And I met, other people who I came to know really well, other brothers and sisters who are around my age, some older, some younger, and what an experience that was. And I got to perform. I got to perform in part two. It showed later that year. One other thing that happened that year was me and my parents. We got to do Hajj and Umrah, and
Alhamdulillah.
that that had a lot of significance for me, not just in regards to another pillar of Islam, but because so many things had happened up to that point, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. I didn't think that it was possible to start again, but there I was. It was like Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. He was telling us, me and my parents, that we could start again. We could, make a new beginning, and then just go from there. So I was so thankful to be able to do that with my parents. But the thing is, even after, alhamdulillah, I got to do it, we still had to work out our issues, because I was saying earlier that you don't ever want to see your parents in a bad light, but because when you do, when something happens and it actually makes you think like that, it crushes you. It literally destroys your whole world. And I still couldn't come to terms or accept all the things that had happened. And I was bitter. I was really bitter towards them. Like, I shouldn't have been, but at the same time, stuff happened, like really, really terrible stuff. Like, if I told people about this stuff, like, oh, they'd understand instantly. It's like that stuff, it rips families apart and it destroys kids. And the being part of the community helped in that regard, because one thing I learned was how important it was to keep that relationship with your family. And one thing that I liked about that about all the programs is that they had things for everybody. If there was something for someone my age, there were things for people who are older as well. And so, my parents, they would get to go to that. They let me go to this stuff, because they knew that I wanted it. And at some point, we learned to talk about the things that had happened, because it's just tough when you don't really have anyone who you can talk to about these issues. Because even with how close I was with the community, I couldn't just tell somebody about all the things that happened.
Sure.
And I still didn't feel comfortable telling anyone in my family or anyone. And that's a tough situation,
Yeah.
because like, you need to, because if you bottle it up, you're going to explode. And the only people I could talk with eventually was my parents, and in the beginning that was hard. But
Right.
alhamdulillah, that because we did eventually like come to an understanding and work through that, and now I can really see them the way a child should see their parents. I see them as really the best people, the best parents in the world, the best people in the world, the people who really care about me the most and would do like absolutely anything for me. And just the fact that, they were able to change as well too. We all needed changing. And
Right.
usually people say that sometimes it's difficult for parents to change, especially when they grow older, but mine did. So, let it be know that they did. And, no, I just love them so much. We have an amazing relationship. I trust them and love them more than anyone and anything. And alhamdulillah, we're in a really good place right now. And I think we might not have gotten to that place if certain things hadn't happened, is how I see it.
Right. Absolutely. Brother Adam, your story is so powerful and really inspirational. I'd say it's a story of hope. I mean, so many of us, I think, we have toxic relationships. We've got old fights or drama that just seems like it'll never be resolved. There's things we don't want to talk to our parents or our spouses or our siblings about. And you're saying that it can be worked through, that you can make a change. And whatever it was that inspired your parents that day to bring you to the masjid set in motion that chain of events, that you went from being a child who wouldn't say a word in front of anyone else to standing on stage and performing. You went from a household where Arabic wasn't spoken and religion, Islam and Deen wasn't a huge part of your life to now you're doing Hajj and Umrah with your parents, and now you're helping to run a Quran school. I mean, what an amazing transformation. So alhamdulillah, may Allah bless your parents.
Alhamdulillah, I mean,
it's a really beautiful relationship you have with them. So I would love to get some advice from you, Brother Adam. We have a segment in our show here called Minute to Win It. And I would love for you to share some advice with others who might also be on the more of the shy or reserved side. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever, but you've had this wonderful transformation of finding this joy in community because you were able to put yourself out there. So in a minute, what is your advice based on your own experiences to those of us in our community who may be on the more shy and reserved side?
For those people, I'd say something amazing out there is waiting for you, and you can get it if you just look for it and you don't give up. It could be tough. You might have to go through a lot of very painful and difficult things, but you're not going through those things because you're being punished. It's because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He wants something for you, something amazing for you. But some blessings that He gives are so special that He can't just give them right away. And that's the mercy from Him. Sometimes some things have to happen for you to find the best blessings, kind of like a diamond in the rough situation, or the most valuable things are the ones that are hardest to find. And for the people who aren't shy, or for anyone in general, look for the people who are, because they need help. They have a lot to share and give, but they need the chance to be able to do that, as long as you allow them to give them the chance to open up and, and learn how to love and care for others. Because my community, the community that, and the people that I came to know, they helped me do that. And I'm so grateful to them for that, because it felt like I was getting to grow up properly finally, learn about myself in the ways that I didn't before, and really see what I had to give.
Alhamdulillah. That's beautiful advice to everyone, introverts and extroverts alike. Wonderful. Yeah, I'll take that one to the bank. That's great. Brother Adam, I would love to spend more time chatting with you. I hope one day we can meet up in Texas or somewhere and get to know each other in person and experience some of that beautiful community you have there in Garland. For now, though, we're going to have to bring the conversation to a close, and I would love if you would honor us with a dua, inshallah.
Sure. Ya Allah, please guide us to the straight path. Keep the bonds between us close with each other. Allow us to make a positive change in our lives and others' lives, and to be sincere in everything that we do, so that way our sincerity and what's in our hearts and minds can reach those of other people.
Ameen. Ameen. Brother Adam, it's been such an honor and pleasure talking to you. Please come back and chat again. Let's do this again. If you are not part of Project 100, please join so you can meet Adam and all these other wonderful brothers and sisters out there who are doing exactly what Brother Adam's talking about, building community and drawing people together to go on and do even better things together. Thank you, Brother Adam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.